Okay, with the little icon telling me that I'm live. Apparently, that is the affirmation that I am indeed alive and here in this realm, in this moment, on this day with you. It's Robert Phoenix. It is the 29th of October, and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. And it's people already here, ready to hang out. And the downloads, I got to tell you, man, what I'm going to share with you this morning is enormous. Absolutely freaking enormous. Okay. But before I go there, we got Mr. Cruz, Johnny, right here in the house. J&P Love. There's Ryan. What's happening? Lisa Marie. Double C Craig Corporon's here. Marlene, of course. She's here today. Good to see you. Let's see. Who else we have? Miranda Couch. Natasha Lloyd. Yes. There's Joe Dimitri. And who else? Lils is here. Dorothy. Hi, Dorothy. I sent your husband an interesting text this morning, which I'm going to actually play here today on the show. Uncle Glenn, what's going on, brother? Lori Seiler. Lori, I tried calling you 2 days ago. The number thing didn't work. So try to reach out to me today, okay? Call me on my cell phone because I know that we need to hook up. Let's see. Sandy, M.I., Shannon Jones, Joe Mama. There's Ani Brito. What's going on, Ani? The lovely and talented Joan S. in the house. So, wow, things are happening. Sandra Wells, what's going on, cuz? Nice to see you. Sandra, we got a couple of Hoosiers in the chat. You may want to get to know them a little bit. Marlene and Sandra, you may want to get to know each other a little bit. Coach K here. Lori says, I'll reach out to another Hoosier in the house. Let's see. Christy, what's happening, Christy? There's Laurel Jubin, who brought her cosmopolitan flash and game to the Hill Country. Nice to see you. And Tondar, we're still getting hit by the trolls. Well, we got the best armed security this side of Rajneesh and the Rajneesh Puran, who were armed to the gills. Okay, why don't we get cranking here? All right, let's just get right into it. Let's do the little invocation, and then the bomb's going to be dropped. Hold on one second. Excuse me. Gesundheit. So I'm working with a new audio, new mic today. How's it sounding? Does it sound okay? Does it sound pretty well? Does it sound okay? Can you hear me okay? Tommy, can you hear me? Double V, what's up? Can you guys hear me all right? Testing 1 2, mic, check it, mic. All right, thanks, Cheryl. All right, here we go. Dear blessed and holy Mother, Father God. Sounds clear. Excellent. Which is the light, the great light of the universal sun, the great central sun, which is the light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, and all sentient beings who aspire to awaken to its golden radiance, wisdom, information, and love. We ask that we be blessed by the highest and best truth and information and wisdom to come through this channel at this time. And as a result, that we are blessed and graced by the qualities of receptivity, compassion, empathy, flexibility, humor, intelligence, preparedness, alertness, courage, strength, fortitude, commitment, faith, intelligence, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and removed from this stream. So be it. Let's go. Let's get rocking. If you guys watched Tucker Carlson last night, I believe you are probably aware of the fact that there was a package of documents that was sent to Tucker Carlson via, I'm assuming it was FedEx, okay? I mean, it's either FedEx or UPS, and if it's an overnight deal, it's probably FedEx. So that package never arrived. It never arrived to his destination, which was the hotel where he was staying, where he was interviewing Tony Bobulinski. And so they began to, I wouldn't say interrogate, but they started an inquiry. And again, it's got to be either FedEx or UPS. Whoever it is, they started the inquiry, and they tracked it from point A to point zero, where the documents disappear. So somebody's reading Tucker Carlson's cell phone. Somebody's intercepting his messages, text messages. This is exactly what happened. And as soon as I saw that piece, it's like, well, how do they know? How do they know that this package is headed towards Los Angeles? Are they reading the text of Tucker's producer in New York? Well, I don't think so. They're reading Tucker Carlson's cell phone. And who can do that? Who has the power to do that? Well, it's people that have the code keys to any cell phone that is either produced by Apple or Samsung. I don't think they have the code keys to BlackBerries, but that's another story altogether. Anyway, and who would have those code keys? Well, we know that one of the reasons. Well, Tim Cook and Apple are deeply entrenched in China, and according to Alex Jones, Tim Cook gave up the code keys, and that was part of the deal. That he would be able to continue to produce his little products, his little cell phones, and do so at a very affordable rate in exchange for the code keys. So China theoretically has a back door into every cell phone, but they're not alone. Okay, so let's disabuse ourselves of the notion that China is the only nasty cook in the kitchen. There are ex-intelligence people in this country, and you know who they are. John Brennan, Jim Comey, James Clapper, right? These people, they all have, Peter Strzok, they all have the technology, and they all have the wherewithal to use that technology to tap into and intercept any personal message, any phone call. This stuff has been around since the 1990s. This is what Danny Casolaro was doing. He'd created a software called Promise, Promis, and it's gone way beyond whatever Danny Casolaro was doing. And Danny Casolaro created a software that would recognize keywords in conversations. So let's say I said something like, I don't know, Twin Towers. All of a sudden, blah, 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 right, Twin Towers. There is a piece of software running underneath everything that recognizes keywords. That's been engaged in the intelligence agencies for a long time, since the 1990s. So when Edward Snowden came out and brought his striking revelations to the rest of the world, for me, they were not that revelatory because I knew what was going on. I knew that this had been happening. And if you want to read an interesting book, read the Gemstone Files by the late Jim Keith. And this was published in the 90s, which is when I read the book. And this gets into the story of Danny Casolaro and the Promise software. So this stuff has been around for a very long time, and it is light years now beyond basically what they stole from him. So it doesn't even, in some ways, it doesn't matter if China has the code keys to Tucker Carlson's cell phone, although they most likely do. These other groups and these other intel agencies have the software available. And by the way, there are third parties that run underneath the communication structures of the intel agencies. The NSA outsources basically all of its intercept technology. And I've talked about this before, and one of the main companies that has done this was a company called Verint out of Israel. There are others. I think the one was Nallis, if I'm not mistaken. So they've outsourced the technology. So anything that's going through the NSA's network, like right now, it's also being funneled off and going into other places, not just some kind of fusion center. Okay, so there's a number of reasons why and how Tucker Carlson's text would be intercepted. Now, what's interesting from that point is what happens next. Because what happens next is that package goes to I'm assuming a FedEx or UPS, it could be one or the other, center in, where does he shoot that show? Is it DC? I think he shoots it in DC, doesn't he? And somehow, some way, somewhere, somebody gets access to that package. And eventually, as they're sorting through, they find no contents inside this thing. It's very interesting. Now, of course, they make copies. And I was on a message board last night, and they were, people were just ripping Tucker Carlson to shreds. Oh, this is a bunch of bullshit. They made it all up. Oh, isn't it convenient that these documents went missing? Well, guess what? Not only are they still available, they've been published online. And I ran across them this morning. So I'm going to show you these documents. And what they are is bank statements. All right. So I have to do a disclaimer here that number one, I'm sharing information with you that I have received from a not just a third party, but a fourth party source. Okay. The original excavation point for these documents is 4chan. And I came to them through another site. So I cannot necessarily vouch for the validity of the documents, but when I show them to you, they look an awful lot like bank statements. And bank statements have very damning information. So there's my disclaimer. I'm sharing these statements, and I'm sharing this information with you, which to this point is unconfirmed. So you must understand that. And you must take this in at a level that you can, always with a bit of a skeptical eye and the ability to question and discern whatever it is that I'm sharing with you. You should practice this all the time, no matter what. Today it's very important, and I'm being very conscious about telling you this. Okay? All right. So let me jump in here, and again, this literally crossed my screen just moments before I came on the air. So I tried to put as much of it together as possible so that I could have some context. And so we're really going to look at this here. Now, let's start at the top. You see the name? This is Devon Archer. Isn't this interesting? We've got the South Node in Sagittarius. South Node in Sagittarius. And the truth is revealed by the Archer. I think it's interesting. Okay, here we go. Devon Archer, this is Hunter Biden's business partner who is in prison and has become a key witness against Hunter Biden and his father. All right. So I want to zoom in here a little bit, see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Oh, there we go. Okay. I want you to pay attention to some of these names here. Beneficiary or benefit Robert Biden. Robert Biden. Beneficiary Bohai Harvest RST Shanghai. Krista Amirati, Archer D. This is establishing that this is indeed Devin Archer's account. And some of the sums here get pretty significant. What do we have here? Bank of China. Bank of China, $46,315. Navy SEAL Foundation. Whoa, what is up with that? That's interesting. That is very interesting. There's obviously some other things going on here. RSTP Capital. I don't know who that is. Right. We got an automatic bill payment of $3,000. Probably that sounds like rent to me. Office space or something like that. Okay, so this is one document. Okay, there are more. There are more. And there are a couple here that are really like going to flip your wig. Does anybody ever say flip your wig anymore? Here we go again. Let's zoom in a little bit. Who do we see here? Robert Biden. Who is Robert? This is not a name that I have seen. Is Robert Biden code for Hunter Biden? Or is this another Biden that we don't know about? Is this a Biden that's hiding? Igor Dorin, attorney escrow. And look what we have here. Burisma Holdings. There it is, right there, $83,333.33. And there is a Biden that's receiving money. Who is Robert Biden? Is it Joseph Robert Biden? Is it Hunter Robert Biden? There we go, Burisma, right there. There are two of them. There are two payments. There's one here. Right, and then one right below. Again, these are statements from Devin Archer's checking account. At least that's what the statements say. This is big shit, folks. This is big shit. Right here. Right here. This is game-changing material. Absolute game-changing material. Let me show you the third one. I got to back off this one a little bit. Hold on. Here we go. Again, Burisma. Let me back off a little bit more. Beverly Hills Escrow Trust. With red funds was red. Is that shorthand for something? I don't want to say red, meaning red is in China. Funds received, private bank, Burisma. Look at that. There it is. Holy fucking smokes! Here it is. This is what 4chan is doing the job of what these intelligence agencies should be doing. They like that number, 83,333.33. Here we go. Here's another 20,424.82. And again, this is connected to the bank statements of Devin Archer, the former business partner of Hunter Biden, who apparently now is letting this stuff go. This is interesting. This is the ABLV Bank AS Riga, Latvia, Novartis Holding. Wonder what's going on there. There's an automatic bill payment, $17,000. Boys and girls, there's more. I'm just showing you three of these. You know, I have a lot. I have a number of things to say about this, but first, I want to know what you think. Right? What do you think here? Hunter's first name is Robert. There you go. There you go. That's who's getting the money. Robert is Hunter's first name. There you go. You guys are up to speed. Robert Biden. Tucker called it Soviet-style suppression. Yep, there we go. Robert is no, it's about. So we're clear. We know who Robert Biden is. It's Hunter's first name. I read many comments of people being banned from Twitter for sharing pro-Trump posts. I'm taking odds this show will be terminated 3.21 maximum. I did a disclaimer. My disclaimer was, I don't know where these came from, and that you have to look at this material and content in the same sort of light and fashion. You have to do your own research. You have to ask your own questions as to the veracity and the validity. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is not going to be the last time you've seen these documents. Not going to be the last time. I think the next week is going to be proper Looney Tunes. Oh man, this is we are headed. The energy is fucking crazy right now. I don't know if you've been watching what's going on in Philadelphia, but they've been using Philadelphia as kind of a force multiplier to, they're using Philadelphia to ignite, right? To ignite these events around the rest of the country. And there was video yesterday I didn't show you, like some of the protests that are going on around the world that are connected to, the face diaper and the lockdowns. The Australians are finally waking up. They're finally getting a clue. There are big protests in Melbourne now. And Dan Andrews, who's been Dan the man and in control, looking a little bit ruffled. Like, I wasn't really prepared for this. And for me, it's like, how long will it take for the security forces in Australia to eventually give up the ghost? Right? When will they abandon their posts? At what point will those people who have been promised, 3 hots and a cot or whatever, right? They're getting paid. And they're getting to enforce law over other people. But at what point does that begin to crumble? Because Dan Andrews is only as powerful as those men and women on the street who enforce those laws. And once those men and women on the street choose to no longer enforce those laws, guess what happens? Dan Andrews and any elected official loses all power. In some cases, this can be a good thing. In other cases, such as Philadelphia, and I'm going to play you some alarming video from Philadelphia, that's not such a good thing, especially when it's intentional. So there are a lot of, look who's here. The man is here. He's so happy that winter has arrived and I'm doing the show, indoors. Jasper, what do you want to say to your adoring fans today? You got anything to say to your adoring fans? Huh? You got anything you want to say? I think Jasper, I have to say, I put Jasper in like maybe the top 5 percentile of cats around the world. And I know we have some special cats out there. The Crimmies have a special cat. Emily has a special cat. We all have special cats. But I have to say, Jasper is in kind of a league of his own, right? Getting the whiskers. That's funny. You're funny. Anyway, bringing it back to the world stage, like it's gonna get bananas. To quote Robert Blake, bananas. It's gonna get crazy. It's already starting to get crazy. Here we are. It's Thursday night. Well, Thursday day, going to be Thursday night. We're headed into Friday, Saturday, the blue moon, Halloween. Man, like very rare. I think there's like in the 20th century, one other Halloween that's had a blue moon on it. So, and not, it's not just the blue moon, but we have the Uranus conjunction of the moon at that time. Wild. And, when an animal feels like it's threatened or caged, what does it do? It strikes out. Like those two Muslim yellow jackets yesterday on the show, man. Those women are legendary. I think they won the inner tubes yesterday. They broke the inner tubes, meaning the internet and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, I stayed up and watched Joe Rogan and Alex Jones. I stayed up way too late watching Joe Rogan and Alex Jones. And it was a very interesting show on a number of different levels. And we're going to get back to the global stage. I got more stuff. I'm going to take a little sidetrack here with Joe and Alex. Always an interesting experience based upon their oppositional astrology. I mean, exact oppositional astrology. Joe, born August 11th. Alex, born February 11th. Complete opposites. I'll tell you another really interesting opposition, and it does have to do with Leo and Aquarius. And maybe I'll play this on Sunday night. If I have the space, I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about on Sunday night. But there's a very interesting interview on the Dick Cavett show, and it's with Norman Mailer. And Norman Mailer was an Aquarius, and Gore Vidal is on the show. And Gore Vidal is a Leo. And again, exact oppositional energy. And the antagonism between Norman Mailer and Gore Vidal is more than palpable. It's like Norman Mailer wants to punch his lights out. Maybe I'll play that content on Sunday night. It's actually fascinating, especially from an astrological perspective. So Alex was drinking his ass off, and Joe has his sober October. Well, I guess that's a good thing, I guess. His liver gets to take a vacation for 30 days. Well, good. And apparently Alex stopped drinking for about 4 or 5 months. And then he got back. He was on the wagon. He lost a bunch of weight. And then the guy has an incredible amount of external stress and pressure. Like, I know that I've capped on Alex Jones. And I've also been praiseworthy at times of Alex Jones. I wouldn't want to be in that guy's body. Could you imagine the amount of stress that he has put up? And then, by the way, Alex, if you're watching my show, I still haven't gotten the damn radio that I ordered from your website, because apparently you're running out of money. And I would like to have a crank radio. And I'm still waiting on it. So Alex or anybody from InfoWars, if you're scooping my content, please send me my radio. I haven't gotten it yet. Anyway, I thought Alex was really good. Really, really good. And guess what? Spotify took the show down. They took the show down. And as of yesterday, it was up a day. As of yesterday, it had 6 million views on YouTube. Joe, you should never have left YouTube. Or if you did leave YouTube, you should have just done what Alex has done and created your own server. Alex is talking about band.video having 3 million views on some of his videos. So now Joe did a deal with the devil. And there was this young guy, Tim Dillon, on there who I really liked. And it was interesting. He was somebody who grew up listening to Alex Jones. And obviously Alex Jones made an impact on his life. And there he is on the show with Alex Jones. He was like, this is like Christmas for me. I liked him. And he's planning on moving to Austin. All these people are moving to Austin. They're all leaving California. Gee, I wonder why. Anyway, I don't think there's anything too revelatory about what Alex has to say. There's a lot of dot connecting with transhumanism, AI. I was really surprised that he actually admitted that Jeffrey Epstein had a relationship with the Mossad. That I was surprised about, because of course he did, and that he was this sort of choke point between the CIA, MI6, through Ghislaine Maxwell and the Mossad. So he admitted that. So kudos to you, Alex, for doing that. So a lot of the stuff was not too revelatory, except for the fact that Joe Rogan is kind of a free speech cock blocker, I have to say, because he interrupted Alex as much as Alex has interrupted other people. And, Joe, and I get why he does this. He wants to kind of cushion the fall, or cushion the blow. So when Alex says something outrageous, he's very careful about, how it's perceived in some ways. He's almost like a church lady. I mean, they went through this quote by Gretchen Whitmer, which was basically saying, if you don't vote for Trump, if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you're going to get screwed, and you're going to be on lockdown, and you're going to have masks, or you're going to have a pandemic. So, and that's really what the quote was saying. And she was saying it indirectly, but that's what she was saying. And Joe Rogan's trying to parse this thing out, and, well, maybe she meant this, maybe she meant that. And, he's giving the Young Turks a pass, and he's giving, and Joe is really into the idea of augmentation. He is really into Joe is pro-transhuman. That is clear. He's into augmentation. He wants to experience that. And Alex is really not pro-trans. Well, at least not in that sense. Anyway, it's a long episode. It's 3 hours. And I guess, the sizzle on the steak is at the end where Alex says, I want to do this another year. And then I'm done. Because it's taking a toll on my body, it's taking a toll on my life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's been doing it for 26 years now. Anyway, watch the interview. Who knows? Maybe YouTube will take it down too. I mean, that's possible, because Spotify did. And if I was Joe Rogan, Joe probably will just kind of let it go and try to see the big picture and know that YouTube has it and the content is out there, and what else can he do at this point? He signed a deal, which, frankly, I think you should walk away from. But that's a whole other story. So again, bringing this all back to these documents, right? What's interesting is that, the universe is this wonderful and marvelous and mysterious organism and mechanism that has these fascinating and at times spectacular ways of balancing out the situations of life. So while Twitter is essentially banning the New York Post, the oldest newspaper in the country, banning the president's press secretary, and banning just about anybody who wants to surface anything related to Joe and Hunter Biden. Facebook banned Masaki for 3 days. And he was talking about Enki and Enlil, for crying out loud. He wasn't even talking about Biden or Trump or he was talking about Enki and Enlil. He gets a ban for 3 days. What the hell is that about? What is that about? So while we have these media outlets getting more and more constricting, guess what happens? What did I tell you? I said that water will always redirect itself. You can't dam things up forever. It will always redirect itself. When I was a kid, I'd play around with water and mud and shit like that. Everybody did that as a kid. So you play around with it. It's like it goes this way. You build a little dirt mud dam. It's what it goes around, right? Or if there's enough water, it will just go right over the top. Or if it keeps hitting that and it's not concrete, guess what? It wears it away and there it goes, right? So, information and truth are the same thing when they're bundled up in the right package together. That will find a workaround. And guess what happens? Boom. These documents are now on the internet and everybody can see them. By the end of the day, this will be the story. But maybe by 12 noon, this will be the story. That these documents, and I'll leave some links. I'll leave the links in the show page. You guys, you want to grab those links, show them around. Show them to your friends. Show them to your friends. If you have friends who are adamant about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and their innocence, just for a lark, send them these documents. Say, hey, I'd like to share something with you. What do you think of this? Well, anybody could do that. Anybody could do that. It's the internet. There can be Photoshop. That's the first line of defense. I guarantee you, though, part of that gets through them. And they'll say to themselves, holy shit. And by the way, there are a lot of people that are trying to change their vote. They're trying to change their vote. Now, I don't think Trump is the panacea for everything. But I'll take Trump over Biden and mostly Harris any day of the week. I'll take my chances with Trump and Jared and, Trump playing a game of I'll do this, which makes me shake my head. Then I'll do this. I'll shake my head one way, and then he'll do this, and I'll shake my head this way. This is the Trump methodology. This is the Trump technique, and I'll take my chances with that. That maybe in the end it'll all balance out. Hopefully. Oh, by the way, if you have an AR style pistol, you're kind of fucked because the ATF just made a ruling that all AR style pistols are now illegal. And why is that? Now, isn't Trump in charge of the ATF theoretically? And if he isn't, he better be. Now, if he's a 2A guy, that's in his administration. Anyway, but this is what I was talking about. The universe has this marvelous way of recorrecting when things get too extreme. The universe has this marvelous way of recorrecting the situation. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So the documents get hijacked, stolen, right? They're gone, theoretically. But guess what? There are copies. They had them. Tucker talked about it last night. He basically showed whoever the delivery service was, he showed them. They sent them copies of the documents. Said, this is what you're looking for, which is kind of smart in some ways. Because guess what? Now that company has seen those documents. They've seen the documents. So now there's a different kind of trail. I wouldn't call it a paper trail. I'd call it kind of a digital trail, a digital crumb trail. So now we have these documents just getting dumped on 4chan. Now, how 4chan got them, I don't know. But I'm assuming that somebody inside of Tucker Carlson and Fox News' camp, probably a producer who either has an alias or knows somebody who has a 4chan account, forwarded those documents. There you go. And 4chan is kind of amazing because say what you will about it. A lot of people don't like 4chan, but I've seen people on 4chan, they get together and they will figure out, and they will compare pictures of protesters, and they'll compare the pictures, this person, this situation, and they're able to basically compile a profile of one person who goes to at least 3 or 4 of these so-called demonstrations. And then they figure out who this person is. And then they figure out where they live. Like these people, to me, this is exciting shit. Like this is the spirit, the true spirit of rebellion and truth in the human species. We're kind of built for this, and people have been in mad sort of, they've been in like the octagon or the gym, training hardcore, through 4chan, through 8chan, to some degree through Reddit, putting these tools together so that, it's a collective effort too. It's not just one person. It's a collective effort. It's brilliant. And they're doing the work of these intelligence agencies that really are probably doing the same thing, but also sitting on it at the same time. So and I'm trying to come at this from a higher sort of, quantum meta level. I mean, the information is there. It's there. Okay. How it got there is, to me, the interesting story. To me, that is the bigger takeaway. And for you, it should be, or you may want to consider that. I don't really like the word should, because when I see that, I get hopeful and I get optimistic, because there are forces that cannot be controlled as much as they would like to control these forces, which are the individual will of freedom and truth, which is the spark of light in God within each and every one of us. They can't do it. They cannot do it. And so when we zoom out and move forward into the fourth industrial revolution and the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, and I'm pretty convinced now that Klaus Schwab is kind of a higher level version of George Soros. I don't think he's the real architect behind this stuff. I think he's the connector, and he's somebody who's been tasked with driving the vision forward. But I don't think he's the real architect behind the fourth industrial revolution. Just like I don't think George Soros is, the real boogeyman. I think he's a bagman. I've always thought Soros is a bagman. And there are people behind Soros that have the money, and they use Soros as a front. And I think Klaus Schwab is a bit of a front. Sigurd left a comment on the show a couple of days ago about how he read one of Klaus Schwab's books, and it's really underwhelming. And he thought, well, this guy's supposed to be this mastermind, and they're going to roll out this fourth industrial revolution, and these autonomous systems and AI and all this stuff. And really, the book is more like a kind of a marketing brochure that pretty much, I'd say, most of us could write, given enough time and research on the internet. We could put the ideas together. They're not really original ideas. They're not original ideas at all. It's pablum. And it's in a lot of ways, it speaks to sort of kind of who he is in some ways, right? He's not really, even though he's got all that Aries in his chart, he's not really the driving, he may be the driving force as a face and the organizer of Davos. I think it was Emerald V left a comment that it's really his wife, and there's very little information around his wife. Maybe a 4chan should tackle his wife. Anyway, this, to me, those documents, even though they're really damning, and in the title of the show, I say smoking howitzer. That's what it is. But the big takeaway is sort of how these things move from being locked down and cut off and blocked or shadow banned or whatever those things are. It finds a way. Just like how when I was a kid and that water would roll down the hill and I'd make my little dam, it would find a way around the dam. That's encouraging. That's encouraging. That is a big takeaway. Do not underestimate the spiritual mechanics around this whole thing. There was one of my first spiritual teachers, whom I've talked about before, was this guy named Dwayne. I think Dwayne has long since passed because he was in retirement age. He was in his late 60s when I knew him in my early and mid 20s, and that was in the 80s. So we're talking a ways ago. Dwayne would be pretty old by now. But one of the things that he talked to me about, because he was introducing me to all these very high level kind of esoteric principles, like, this is where I got into the whole, 12 ray stuff. And he talked about the law of balanced interchange, which basically is kind of a higher level sort of spiritual interpretation of reciprocity. And if you go into like tribal communities, like say in the Amazon basin, and one of the things that not all the tribes, but some of the tribes in the Amazon basin practice is this idea of reciprocity, that it keeps things moving, right? That reciprocity is the thing that allows a tribe or a community or a village to function. And if you don't have reciprocity, then things begin to seize up. Reciprocity is like the lubrication of human interaction between one another. So at a higher level, the law of balanced interchange is spiritual reciprocity. It's like quantum reciprocity. So if one entity or one group or one organization, one egregore thought form begins to hoard everything and shut these things down and close them off and wall them in, there is going to be a reaction towards that. There is going to be, and we've seen this historically, and there are a number of examples where we've seen it. We could go to the Romanovs, and we could go to, Alexandra and the Russian nobility, and how decadent Russia was at that time. They're incredibly decadent. And there was a small group of very elite people who hoarded most of the resources. The Romanov family weren't even Russian; they were German. And guess what? People were pissed off. They were like, man, we work our asses off, and these people live in opulence, and they fuck around, and they do all this shit, right? Well, they were prime. They were prime for a fall. The Bolsheviks could not overthrow that country if the people inside of Russia were not dissatisfied. Now, that's not to say that the Bolsheviks didn't increase that level of dissatisfaction. Oh, they did. They absolutely did. What happened with post-World War I Germany, and what happens during that period, in that phase, where the Germans, through the Treaty of Versailles, have to pay reparations? It's the Weimar Republic. Germany is bankrupt. Morally, financially, they're bankrupt. And then there are these forces who are trying to come in to the void and control, right? They're kind of trying to come into the void and control where Germany is going to go. And Hitler and the Nazi Party was just one force. Like, there were Stalinists inside of, they were Leninists actually, inside of Russia, and Stalinists too, because Stalin was running. So Stalin and Lenin had two very different styles, and that's where Antifa really gets its roots. We looked at this before. So in that void, guess what happens? Something occurs, right? There's decadence. It's like people are. Basically the movie, I've talked about this before, Cabaret, which I think is a brilliant movie, is based on this. And how Cabaret was portrayed was actually a very tame version of what would go on in the Weimar Republic. So Liza Minnelli, who plays Sally Bowles, is a showgirl, right? And it's all very, like Kurt Weill and stuff like that. But, during the Weimar Republic, people would bang on stage. And that was the level of where they were at. It wasn't just, sort of this, skimpy titillation. I mean, there were live sex acts going on during the Weimar Republic. And not only that, but things were so expensive, there's such hyperinflation that people had to sell their bodies. Women had to sell their bodies during that time. And so what does the universe do? The universe comes in and says, well, we have to have a course correction here. Now, was it an extreme course correction? Well, you be the judge about that. But we've seen this again and again and again over history, right? Cycles. We've seen these things cycle through time. Now we're into mini cycles. Now we're into these kind of micro moments. A lot of it has to do with technology and how things have sped up tremendously. So an event that would, basically, the end of World War I is what? 1917, right? 1917, World War I is pretty much over. It's between 1917 and what are we talking about? Like late 20s, early 30s, I think early 30s. That's where that period of the Weimar Republic, sort of, I don't want to say blossoms, because that's not really the right idea. And the Frankfurt School is sort of running in the background of all this too, right? So we're talking from 17 to about like 19, let's say 1930. That's a 13-year cycle. So a 13-year cycle of some kind of course correction. However you want to define what that is, right? That's a 13-year period. We've just seen a course correction in 24 hours. 24 hours. That's how fast everything is moving. That's how accelerated the game is at this point. And if you sleep, you're going to miss it. I mean, you do need your sleep. But if you sleep, you're going to miss it. You want to stay awake now. You want to stay awake through everything. Everything. Because if you don't stay awake through everything, then you're going to miss out on some spectacular, absolutely spectacular demonstrations of the spirit. And we just witnessed one in 24 hours, given that these documents are indeed real. If they are real, and they are valid, and they are confirmed, and my guess is that they will be, we went from having them hijacked, taken away, so that nobody could see them. Tucker Carlson couldn't get his hands on them, right? Of course, they have copies. To it being ubiquitous and everywhere. Wrap your head around that. Wrap your head around. I think that's the big story. That's the big takeaway. And of course, whatever happens as a result of this, well, we're going to see it. We're going to see it. All right, what do you guys say? We're living in very decadent and degenerative times now in the U.S. What correction will we have? Sharia, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. Sharia law, maybe. You've got Mike Pence and the Dominionists who could be the moral correction, possibly. So while we are living in very decadent times, I also think that there's a really significant awakening that is offsetting some of it. So, there's the universe has this ability to release certain things as kind of a pressure release valve. And I ran across a video yesterday of these mothers who went to a school board meeting in Florida. And basically the school board was meeting to mandate masks for kids under 5 years old. And, I don't know, man. If I was a parent now and I had a young child, they would not be going to public school. I'm sorry. They just wouldn't be going to public school. So, these women, if they really want to make a stand, they take their kids out of the damn school. Just take them out of the school. Because not only are they going to mandate their mask, but the education that they're going to receive it's not going to be great. It's programming. The kids are going to get programmed. So there's a much bigger piece here. And again, and I know Trump appeals. One of Trump's greatest gifts is his ability to appeal to the common man and woman. They identify with him. He speaks their language. He's not, speaking in these sort of lofty or Aristotelian tones. He has the language and the syntax and the delivery of the common man. That's all that Cancer in his chart. Mercury, Venus, Saturn. Right? He has the ability to do that. And that's why people resonate with Trump. He's not, this gifted orator like Obama was. Well, Obama was only gifted when he had his teleprompter. Get him outside of his teleprompter, and he's babbling Barry. He's got a really terrible stutter. Very difficult for him to connect his thoughts. Reagan, who was supposed to be this great communicator, I don't know. I never got Reagan in some ways, and I don't think Reagan really spoke to the common man at all. I think Reagan spoke to ideologues and free marketeers. Jimmy Carter, I guess he was the common aw shucks guy, and maybe Bill Clinton was too, right? But doesn't have the same resonance that Trump has. He can reach people that way. So we're in interesting times. We are in very, very interesting times. And we are in a major course correction. But the pressure in the release valve is happening so that perhaps, Vanessa, we don't have to embrace an extreme ideology to course correct the moral decay and moral degradation that has settled into this country. And not only settled, but also been promoted. I have had more than a few male clients that I've tried to work with who have addiction to porn. And it's a really damning addiction. It's a really damning addiction. And that's just one example of, what you're talking about. But I believe that we're changing, and we're changing because this force that wants to live through us. And I was having a conversation last night with Beverly. Some of you met Beverly at the event. She's come out and stayed with me for a couple of days and helped me out with a few things. And, one of the things that, we were talking about is the time that we're in. And the time that we're in is incredibly oppressive. And it is really doling out pressure and contraction. Okay. Pressure and contraction. And a lot of this can be explained astrologically. Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Capricorn, right? What does Saturn do? It's about contraction. What do they want to, what's the big vision? Oh, you're not going to own anything and you're going to love it. Right. So we were talking about this idea that, that there's no kind of expansive sort of territory that's available right now. I had a client 2 days ago. Oh, I really want to move to Europe. I'm like, well, good luck with that. I mean, first of all, Europe's got to let you in. And number two, you're going to have to be able to own something in Europe. And whether or not the World Economic Forum is successful in implementing their global austerity, it's called the Global Poverty Program. Europe, I think, will be the testing ground before the testing ground comes here in the United States. But they'll want to try to get it all at once. But they may not be able to. So we want to expand. We want to have a future where we can theoretically travel, where there are ideas and there are aspirations and things to live for. But it's been very difficult. It's sort of like the oxygen level in the room has been decreased. Well, gee, I wonder why. And what is the symbolism of that? It's people wearing their masks. You're boxed in. I mean, this is a localized Capricornian and Saturnian event right in your face. There's no inspiration, right? So we're living in a time that is not necessarily hopeful or not necessarily expansive. We talked about that last night because there were times, where that was taking place, and being my age, I've experienced various manifestations of, what that looks like and feels like. When I was a little kid in the 60s, I lived very close to San Francisco. We would go to San Francisco and truck around, on the cable cars and shit like that. And my father would take me to Playland. I was like 6, 7 years old. And we lived in a little community just south of San Francisco, 65, 66. 60. We showed up right there, right on time for the Summer of Love. And I got to tell you, you could feel it in the air. You could feel it. I was a little kid, but you could feel it, man. There was something going on. There was something special in the air. And that's apart from, MK Ultra and Tavistock and, the Laurel Canyon scene or any of that. There was something happening. And I felt it as a child. I didn't necessarily like hippies, but I could feel the vibe, man. It was alive. I remember that time clearly. I remember how it felt. The Vietnam War is running in the background. So heavy duty thing. But this other, if we weren't involved and marred in the Vietnam War, man, we'd be living in a very different world. Very, very different world. Be different universe. The Vietnam War essentially gives birth to Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn and, the Weather Underground. And then they wind up taking over the educational system, especially at the higher level. And now we've got all these overeducated young Marxists where there's no jobs, right? And that's all byproduct of the Vietnam War. Had we not had the Vietnam War, and we could have lived with that kind of really high vibe in the 60s, man, we would have been the breakaway civilization. The whole planet, not just the United States. It was happening everywhere. Everywhere. It was happening in London. It was happening in Brazil, man. It was everywhere. In Brazil, they have the Tropicalismo movement. In London, you've got kind of the swinging 60s and the mod scene and Carnaby Street. And, it is go, 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 go. It was an interesting time. And the vibe was really high. You get to the 70s, you kind of reach this tranche, but then the 70s get very experimental. There's a lot of really interesting cinema. Electronics begin to be introduced into music. Synthesizers come into play. There's this fusion and experimentation with styles in the 70s. It's interesting. It's fun. As growing up in the 70s, I dug it, man. I was just trying to find, that kind of experimental edge. And there was a lot of that going on in the 70s. It was a very interesting time in that way. The 80s come along, and the 80s have their own version of being expansive. There was a lot of really good energy in the 80s of wanting to help farmers and farm aid. And we were starting to have this kind of global consciousness emerge during the 80s. Technology begins to take off. Music changes again, but it's interesting. Everything is kind of, moving out into this kind of omnidirectional sort of space. And it's like, yeah, man, this is really cool. The 90s get dark, but even the 90s have some moments like, we're in the mid 90s, we have the beginning of the internet and computing power really begins to take off. Again, music changes and there's sampling. And then, the rave scene in the early 90s explodes and it's interesting. You have these Silicon Valley people who were big, psychedelic heads, who were kind of trying to figure things out. And computing was really driven by a lot of people who took acid. Absolutely. But what happens, they eventually become commodified, right? But there was that going on in the 90s, and it was cool. And I wound up working for an internet company. That's the first company that sells digital downloads. It was cool. There was still the sense of vision. There was still the sense of expansion. And then 9/11 happens and puts the brakes on the whole fucking thing. 9/11 is the most significant event, bar none, of the 21st century. Bar none. So we've been living in a time since 9/11 where we've been in this kind of deceleration mode, like orbital decay, social, cultural, perhaps maybe not economic entropy, although that does occur by the time we hit 2008. And we are really at the kind of the nadir. We're close to the nadir right now. We are close to the nadir. But I want to, again, stress that it's important not to get too attached to the moment in this way that it's being constructed around us. It's important not to have your universe defined by what's going on out there, because that's what they want. And when I see what happened with all the shadow banning and all the censoring, and all of a sudden these documents pop up on 4chan like mushrooms overnight, there are greater forces at work. So try to remember that. We are in a struggle. We are really in the battle right now. We are in the battle. If you haven't figured that out, you better figure it out. This is the spiritual battle of the ages. This is the spiritual battle of the universe and time. And you're here. You're here to be a part of it. You're here to witness it. You're here to be a participant in it. These are, not always inspiring times, but they're very important. They're very, very important. So the idea is every day to try to find something inside your life that inspires you, that keeps your the little spark of light, the little burning candle wick lit. It's to feed it, right? And when we're all walking around with these masks on, what happens? We get less oxygen, and the light can go out. Jesus, Jasper, what are you doing? Oh, he saw a bird on the other side of the window. Boy, the light of inspiration at Jasper. I hope I'm making some sense, and I hope I'm not sounding too preachy. But part of my gig is to hopefully illustrate that we are not in a cul-de-sac, and it can get and look really dark, and it may and get really dark, because what we're involved with, these forces, these archonic forces, have been with us theoretically, whatever and however we define time, for a very long time. Very, very long time. And they have managed to sink their psychic hooks into people and move them around like little puppets. And we are in a period and phase where that is coming to an end. Whether you call it the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, or suffering, however you want to phrase it, that time is coming to an end. Just remember that. Remember that. Because if it doesn't, we'll be plunged into darkness. And we may experience darkness temporarily. Temporarily. If we do, you just got to stay alive. You got to stay inspired, right? You got to hold the line. You hold the line, and we will get through it. Because at the end of the day, there's way too much of an investment in what we're experiencing here as a model of novelty and innovation and creativity and imagination. The universe, prime source, however you want to define this thing that is in the background of everything, is not interested in entropy. It is not interested in sort of the antimatter version of the universe. That's not interesting at all. So it will only allow a certain part of this to continue to be entropic, because it really wants to experience itself through us in novel and unique ways, right? So, I had a guy yesterday send me an email, and he's like right at the edge, man. I said, I want to quit my job. They want to make me wear a mask. I got to stick around so my kid can get braces. He wasn't really wanting anything from me. He was just, trying to vent, right? So we're all kind of there. We're at that kind of moment in time where it's like everybody's sort of at the end of their rope, right? And ultimately that's what they want. Because when you're at the end of your rope, the people at the end of the rope, they're dying literally dying for solutions. They are dying for people to rescue them and to bring them out of the pits of their misery and suffering. Don't go there. Don't allow yourself to go there. That's the key. Is that right, Jasper? All right. Let me show you a few things. A couple of videos. You see that big dog? Oh, look at that big dog. I love doing my show here. I sit right here. It's a very busy street. I see walkers, joggers, bikers, all kinds of shit. All right. Let me show you a couple things here. I want to show you Philadelphia. I want to go dark, and I want to take you into the light a little bit here. Okay. Here we go. So this is in Philadelphia. Now, the reason I'm showing this is because Philadelphia is a key American city. Number one, it used to be the capital of the United States before they designated the District of Columbia to be the capital of the United States. And it was where the most famous documents theoretically were signed. And it is the city of brotherly love. Oh, okay. Roger that. It's also the city connected to the Philadelphia experiment in time. It's a very interesting place. And I'd love to have Ross Ben come on the show one of these days, one of these Fridays, and talk about the esoteric architecture of Philadelphia. I think Steve could probably hook that up. So Philadelphia is a key city here, right? It's symbolic. And not only is it symbolic, but if you go into the narrative of the Philadelphia experiment, Philadelphia is a portal. That's exactly what it is. So, of course, the peaceful protesters have been at it in Philadelphia. And this is, I want to show you Mars retrograde and Chiron and Aries. This is an astrological demonstration here. Here we go. This is the purge, folks. She's in trouble. She's in trouble. She knows it. She's got this guy behind her. This little punk. And that's a tame version. That is a tame version of the constabulary in retreat. Wow. Why is this up here? Hold on. Well, that's interesting. Interesting stuff. So there you go. There's your demonstration. That was mild. I've seen other footage from Philadelphia where the cops are like running away. Now, what the fuck are they thinking? They're sending cops out on bicycles. First of all, the idea of cops on bicycles is, to me, kind of laughable. It's kind of laughable, you know, and especially cops on bicycles in shorts. I don't know. There's something very odd about that. And the police chief of Philadelphia says, "Well, we just don't have the resources. We're undermanned. We're understaffed. We don't have the resource." Apparently, there are only I think 20 officers trained in the use of tasers in Philadelphia. It's weird. It's totally weird. Like they don't have the resources to train officers with tasers. Now, the National Guard's going to show up probably by lunchtime tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that's a launching point for what's going to happen over the next couple of days. And it's very specific. Philadelphia is a very specific target. They have had a long history of radical activism. And they had a mayor in Philadelphia a long time ago who did not take any shit. I think his name was Frank Rizzo. And Frank Rizzo was he was a hard ass, man. But in a city that was really gripped by activism, Mumia Abu Jamal, whom I believe is guilty, by the way, that city was kind of run with a really, rough hand. Not anymore. Not anymore. So I wanted to just show that to you because there you go. There's your little astrological demonstration. Mars and Aries retrograde. The cops are retreating. Chiron and Aries, they're vulnerable. Right? They don't have the funds. Okay. There's more. Some other stuff today. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty interesting. And sort of, again, damning in its own particular way. So this was an event where Dr. Jill Biden, not Joe Biden, Jill Biden was in Wisconsin. She's in Wisconsin. And there were some Arab American supporters of the Bidens that wanted to attend the event. And they had a bit of a rude awakening.
This is closed event. You can't be here. Back. Come on.
Dr. Jill Biden has been that way so many
Well, closed event. You're not invited to take the win.
We were invited.
We all got emails.
We all got emails from the campaign to be here.
If you were in there, you'd be in there. Sorry. You mad? You weren't mad. Well, guys, get across the hall.
What?
Get over there.
Over where?
On the sidewalk around the building. Sir, this is a closed event. You're not invited. You have to go this way.
We were invited.
Okay, so who is this guy? Is he a plainclothes detective? Because he's sporting the badge here. I want to see his badge. Let's see. Yeah, he's got a badge here. See, that's his badge. So he is affiliated with a law enforcement agency. It's on the side of his belt. That's his identification. So he is either Secret Service or he is a plainclothes detective, but he's not just your average Biden staffer, okay? These guys went there to support Joe Biden because I guess Biden's been dropping some Muslim knowledge lately. Oh, here we go. Play it again.
Take the win.
We were invited.
We all got emails.
We all got emails from the campaign to be here.
If you were in there, you'd be in there. Sorry. You mad? You weren't mad. Well, guys, get across the hall.
What?
Get over there.
Over where?
On the sidewalk around the building.
On the sidewalk around the building. Just get the fuck out of here.
Closed event. You're not invited. You have to go this way.
We
You're not
were
invited.
invited.
Sorry, sir. Come on. Sorry. Behind the building. Behind the building.
Here come the cops. Well, they got plenty of cops for this. He's not wearing a mask. So, do you know why they were turned away? I'm going to show you why. I got to find this one thing. I'm going to show you why they were turned away. I got to make sure that I can access thing. Hold on. Reload it. There we go. I'm going to show you why they were turned away. Because apparently somebody got into a Joe Biden event in San Antonio that didn't go quite the way that they wanted it to go. By the way, this video was banned on YouTube. So I'm not sure how long this show will stay up. And if it goes down, I promise I'll have it go over to BitChute. But I'm going to show you the video anyway. It's actually quite funny. But this is why those guys weren't invited. And this is why they have not had a ton of people at the Biden events. It's not because they are practicing social distancing and being safe. It's not because they perhaps don't have the same numbers or the same level of support that Trump has. It's because they want to control who gets into the events. That's exactly why they're very small. So here we go. I'll show you why. San Antonio, right here.
Hate groups, white supremacists here at home. Coming down the escalator when he announced in Trump Towers, he said he was doing it before he hit the ground floor. Remember what he said? He said, I'm going to take on those rapist Mexicans.
Those rapist Mexicans. Of course, he's in San Antonio. He knows he's playing to a Latino / Hispanic electorate, right? And he's slamming Trump. And he's basically saying that Trump is categorizing Mexicans as rapists, which I don't believe to be true. Taken totally out of context. I believe what Trump was referring to is what happens to women who try to cross the border from Mexico and wind up in very compromising situations with men who do terrible things to them. I think that's really what he was talking about. And of course, Biden just wants to turn it into this propagandistic broadside. Well, again, the law balance interchange. Let's see what happens.
Then he claimed, no, there's never been a president.
That's a lie, Joe.
Never been a president.
That's a lie.
Oh, it is a lie.
Yeah. And it was your son in the Ukraine. All right.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Out of here.
You're the one that offered to withhold $1 billion. The Council of Foreign Relations. Son of a bitch, he got fired, right, Joe? Son of a bitch, he got fired, right? Remember that? Trump is innocent. Trump is innocent. Infowars.com. Infowars.com, Joe. You'll never be president. Your son is a crackhead. Your son is a crackhead, Joe. What do you think about that? Son of a bitch, he got fired, right? You're not giving $1 billion, right, Joe? There's your quid pro quo, Joe. There's your quid pro quo, brother.
Come on, man. That's why those dudes in Wisconsin were not allowed inside that event, because of what happened in San Antonio. Right? But again, I'm just showing you. I'm showing you. Like, this is how the universe works, man. We're seeing it right before our very eyes. The guy gets to the event and just totally goes on the attack. And at one point, Biden looks at him and smiles. And, Biden's got about, 4 or 5 different smiles that I can see. There's the kind of sideways smirk that he uses when he's trying to deflect something. If he's being told something or shown something, he gets that sideways smirk. But there's a part. I'll go back. I'm going to show you. I'll show you the tell. I will show you the tell. It is. I'll show you the tell. I'm going to play it back right here. I'll show you the tell.
Coming down the escalator when he announced in Trump Towers, he said he was doing it before he hit the ground floor. Remember what he said? He said, I'm going to take on those rapist Mexicans. Then he claimed, no, there's never been a president.
That's a lie, Joe.
There's never been a president.
That's a lie.
Oh, it is a lie.
Yeah. And it was your son in the Ukraine. All right.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah. You're the one that offered to withhold $1 billion to cancel foreign relations. Son of a bitch, he got fired, right, Joe? Son of a bitch, he got fired, right? Remember?
All right, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. Okay, that is not the crooked sideways, deflect the reality. Joe Biden is looking directly at him, and he has a big shit-eating grin right there. That's the tell. Look at that. That is the tell. He knows exactly what he's talking about, and he's proud. He is proud of that. That is the smile of somebody who just was reminded they accomplished something really great. That is one shit-eating grin right there.
Remember that?
Look at him.
Trump is innocent. Trump is innocent.
Okay, I don't need to play the whole thing again. I just wanted to specifically show you that smile and that tell. There you go. Let's see. Yes, the return of corn pop. Let's see. A political reflex. What on earth has happened in France? Oh, yeah. France is having a really brutal time now. Yep. What reality will we be dealing with this time next week? I don't know. It sure as hell is interesting. Yeah, France is having some issues, man. They're in full lockdown mode, and people are getting killed. Seems like, there is, a fatwa against the French government and the French people. That's what it feels like at this point. I don't know. You never know. You never know. Like when they were going through all that stuff with the nightclub and the shootings and, all that stuff, there was another side of that story. Another side to that story. There always is. Remember that. Ani says that smirk has a name. It's the narc smirk. I'm telling you, you got to study those cluster B personality disorders. They become clear as day. He's just owning it. He's totally owning it. New Jersey governor extended lockdowns. I'm telling you, man, people are going to reach their limit. They're going to reach their limit. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, especially over the course of the next 30 days. So Texas Norton's NZ, oh my God, listen to what Macron has Abbas this AM. Is Biden Taurus moon? Where is his moon? I have his chart. Hold on. I'll tell you in a second. Where is he? Yeah, he's got moon 0 degrees Taurus, and part of a yod actually between looks like Neptune and Venus. Oh God, yeah. I'll throw it up here for you guys. Ask and ye shall receive. There's that Taurus. Money moon, the money moon right there. 0 Taurus. And there is the Yod right there. Neptune and Venus. There's the sextile. Looks like the sun is involved there too. We got a 3-degree orb, right? 2 degrees there, 3 degrees there. That's the outlier of the orb for Yod. So Sun Venus conjunction. This is Joe Biden in Dallas. Well, you know what's interesting about that? That's kind of like the chart for San Antonio in some ways. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Yod is not there outside of because he's got all that. Well, that's, this is interesting though too, because he's a 12th house person, but you relocated his chart to Texas. And by the way, Dallas and San Antonio are going to be maybe a few degrees off on the ascendant, but he's out in the open here, right? He is out in the open. He's a 12th house person, being in his basement, being enclosed, locked down. That's Joe Biden. That's his chart. That is his chart. Let me get out of the relocation real quick because I was doing some relocation astrology most recently. Yeah, let's do this. Let's just do that. Yep, the Yod's still there. Yep. There's the moon. Natally 5th house, which is about self-gratification. Right? And it's a greedy moon, man. And it's also with children. And the moon typically in astrology is very unpredictable because it's phasic. So here we go. There's the Yod, there's the inconjunct in the house of children. Interesting. But as we saw relocated, he's no longer sequestered in the 12th house. In here in Texas, he's a first house person. And guess what? He gets first house heckled. All right. There you go. Ask and you shall receive. Does his astrocartography line pass over Leavenworth? You know what we should do? I've never done this before. Let's do this. It's very funny, Steve. It's very funny. Yeah, I mean that. Here, I've never done this before. And I don't know why I haven't done this before. But I think now's the moment. Where are we? Okay. Let's check this out. All right. Oh boy. Wouldn't you fucking know it? All right. So I had not done this before. And I relocated Joe Biden's chart to Ukraine. And I've never done this before. I don't know why. It never, I suppose, struck me. I was more interested in reading his natal chart. Look at what he's got going on there. 9th house, right? Kind of wide open. But in the 8th house, oh boy, there's the sun. There's Venus. Other people's money. Dark secrets. And what does he do? What does he do? He uses Mars as a form of force and coercion in the 7th house with negotiating. There's Mars right there. It's like you either fire that guy or you're not getting that $1 billion, son of a bitch. There it is. There's Mars in the 7th house. He's applying muscle. He's being forceful in his negotiating tactics. but he's also very much involved in, tapping into other people's money with that eighth house. Aries, very direct over Ukraine and Kiev. Moon in the first house, right? There's that Taurus moon gratification. And oh boy, look what we have here in the fifth. There's Pluto and Leo right there. Children, faded. Very interesting. Black moon Lilith conjunct the IC. Dark secrets of the family. Look at that. Saturn Uranus conjunction. Second house. Hard assets. Money. Right. And then Gemini, there's, of course, Joe. By the way, I will say this. I'd never really looked at Jim Biden before, but I have to say that Hunter Biden looks more like Jim Biden than Joe Biden. If you have time, check that out. And based on this family, who knows, right? Who knows? So Pluto here, children, that's his son. Pluto, money, obsession, power, and potentially even undoing. Pluto Mars square. I mean, he's got that natally in his chart. So he's somebody who has, used that Mars and Scorpio to get what he wants. And that Mars Pluto square is, potentially very dangerous, actually. Right? That's like some heavy shit, especially when you're dealing with Mars and Scorpio, square Pluto and Leo. I mean, this is the aspect of somebody who will do whatever they want to get whatever they need. Mars Pluto square. Interesting stuff. Neptune over here, sixth house. That's work. And what are they dealing with? They're dealing with Burisma, which is a company that deals in what? Petroleum, right? Neptune, sixth house. This Neptune's actually fairly well aspected in this chart. But in the sixth house, it's a bit more vulnerable. Why? Because this is not Neptune's house. This is the house of Mercury. Neptune's much better over here in Pisces, where he has the south node. And again, a bit of his undoing behind the scenes. It's an interesting chart. I've never done it before, but I think the key indicators here that would confirm what went down are Mars using force in the negotiation and in the contract discussion and communication with Poroshenko, the eighth house profiting off of other people's money, scorpionic, but his eighth house also has some Sagittarius in it. It's got Juno and Sag. Really, his eighth house starts there at about 27 Scorpio. So the rest of his eighth house is Sagittarius, foreign countries. We got Pluto damning the sun in the fifth house. Aries, again, on the ascendant. Mars here being the ruler now of the chart. And then the moon in Taurus, self-gratification, and ultimately looks like undoing. There you go. A little bit of on-the-fly astrology. Okay. Texas, you're not blocked. Try refreshing. You're not blocked. I can see you, dude. Other people's secrets too. Yep. Bidens like to go swimming in their own genetic pools. Yeah, man. I was looking at Jim Biden, and here, let me see if I can get a picture of him. This is the picture to me. I want you to take a look at this. You guys be the judge on this one, all right? Who does Hunter Biden, I mean, look, again, it's familial, but who does Hunter Biden resemble more? Joe or Jim? I think he looks a lot more like Jim Biden. He has Jim Biden's mouth. He has kind of Jim Biden's sort of forebrow. What do you guys think? Who does he look like more, Joe or Jim? He has Jim's snout and bearing. Yep, totally. Yep. What else do we have here? Biden's like, yeah. I think one of the family secrets there is that Hunter Biden is probably Jim's son and not Joe's son. He talks just like Joe, but yeah, he does look like Jim. He looks more like Jim than Joe. There's some Gemini shit going on here. Big time, right? The brothers. Hunter looks kind of more like Jim Biden. What is Jim Biden's sign? When was he born? Family of Joe Biden. Let's see what we got here. Jill Biden, Ashley Biden. There's a family tree. Okay. Hunter, Bo, Ashley, ancestry table. I'm trying to find his brother. I'm trying to find when his brother was born. I don't see his brother. Oh, interesting. So Hunter Biden, his middle name is either, okay, so Hunter was Joe Biden's first wife's last name, which I was not aware of. And she's a Leo, born July 28th, 1942. Interesting. I'm trying to think of anything else I can see on her. On December 18th, she died on September 18th, 1972. Shortly after her husband became U.S. Senator-elect, Nelia was driving with children, Naomi, Bo, and Hunter, to buy a Christmas tree. Nelia was driving west along rural Valley Road in Hawkesson, Delaware, approaching a stop sign at the intersection with Delaware Route 7, Limestone Road. When she pulled into traffic, the car was struck in the right-of-way by a truck driver traveling north along Delaware Route 7. Police determined that Nelia drove into the path of a tractor-trailer, possibly because her head was turned and she didn't see the oncoming truck. Nelia and her 3 children were taken to Wilmington General Hospital. Nelia and Naomi died upon arrival, but her 2 sons survived with serious injuries. Biden later garnered controversy by making incorrect allegations that the truck drivers, Curtis Dunn, who died in 1999, was drunk at the time. And he married Jill Biden very quickly, like very, very quickly after her death. Very, very quickly. And Jill Biden was, I guess, the babysitter, right? I'm still trying to find Jim Biden's birthday. Let me see here. James Biden, Wikipedia. Okay. Joe Biden. Boy, there is not a lot of information on Jim Biden. There's another Biden. There's Frank Biden. Joe's penniless brother, who is snubbed mourning family. He owes $1 million, but who died at the White House. So I did not know this. Joe has a brother named Frank. Interesting. He lives in Atlantis. And his partner, Mindy Ward, is a Hooters waitress turned American Airlines flight attendant. They lived at a house owned by her parents. has described himself as being educated at University of Delaware, San Francisco State, my alma mater, Cornell, and Pepperdine. So it looks like Frank is the black sheep of the family. Did you guys know there was a Frank Biden? I did not know that. It's just discovery time for us today. Here, let's meet him. Let's meet Frank. There's Frank right there. Hunter does not look like Frank. Frank Biden and Mindy Ward, his partner. There they are with Joe, February 2013. Here's Nelia. Here's Frank. He lives in Atlantis, Florida. It's funny, you never hear. Like his brother, Frank overcame a childhood stutter about which he has been open in later in life. Tall and athletic, he was a high school basketball star, playing guard for Wilmington Friends High School in the Biden's Delaware hometown, as well as second choice quarterback. This is the black sheep. According to a memoir written by Joe's second wife, Jill, Frank was a student at the University of Delaware who played Cupid for the couple. Oh. But in Frank's marriage announcement in 1985, he is described as having studied at San Francisco State. Oh, that's where I went to school. None of the schools would confirm Frank's attendance to dailymail.com. Who's this? Jacquette Biden? Their parents are Mr. and Mrs. James and Jacquette Wilmington and Mr. and Mrs. Joseph R. Biden. Jacquette Biden. Frank was a real estate broker in San Francisco where he married Delaware journalist Janine and Jacquette in October. Interesting. So she's now an associate dean at Columbia Journalism School. Frank also has a daughter, Megan, nurse practitioner. Here's Frank's daughter. The Bidens all have kind of the same look. Interesting. Oh, there he is. Look where Joe's got his hand. Could you get it a little closer to her boob? Now, How the Penniless Vacation. Mindy Ward and Frank Biden posed at Triple Creek Beach in Darby, Montana Creek Ranch. Her room rate started at $1,000 a night, so he's not all that penniless. So there you go. There's Frank. He's a member of the National Recovery Council. His profile on his website includes a series of questionable claims about his past. I guess that's another Biden trait, right? Okay. There was a Jim Biden thing here. Let's just check this out. What do we have here? James Biden, Wikipedia. James Brian Biden. Oh, then we get Hunter's face showing up. Isn't that interesting? Okay, Chatlandia, if you can find his birth date, that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. Because then I could do some interesting connections synastrically with his chart, Hunter Biden's chart, and see if there really is a connection. Okay. People who drive Range Rovers are not penniless. I used to have a Range Rover. It was one of the best and worst cars I ever had. And I studied. I tried to find the right year, the Range Rover, and I think I got it. And it was a little problematic, I have to say. But I'll tell you, when you took that car off-road, it was like driving a Cadillac off-road. It was incredible. The way that the suspension would shift and everything. I mean, I would be going over ruts and hard highway, and the car would hardly move at all. It's fantastic off-road. But a pain in the ass, ultimately. I think that's about all I have today for you guys. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to get into. God, I wanted to get into like connections with Alicia Garza and a bunch of other people. I'm going to have to put that off for another day because, when my videos get up over 2 hours, people don't really spend a lot of time looking at it. My views go down. So I'm almost at 2 hours now, and my inner chronometer is telling me the clock is ticking on today's show. We've covered a lot of ground. We've seen a lot of very interesting imagery. But most importantly, what I want to leave you with once again is the fact that we are living in a very organic, a very sentient, a very pliable, a very receptive reality. And that reality has an investment, not in entropy, decline, or decay, but in evolution, in expansiveness, in novelty, in creativity, and imagination. And it will course correct along the way so that these things can continue to evolve. And we have events where all of a sudden the documents, the theoretical documents now, put quotes up, which did not arrive in Los Angeles, are now ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Keep that in mind. There's some interesting things going on with the light behind me. All right. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. Tomorrow, Russell J. Gould on the show, and I'm going to try to tap into his mindset as much as possible. So if you have any questions for Russell about his work, you can send them to me via email, and I'll do my best to integrate them into the context of the show. Christine, I'll be talking to you shortly. All right, bye for now. Take good care, and have yourself a really good day. Oh, by the way, hit like. It would be a good thing. There you go.